Okay, so welcome. I am going to go through what's new in Visual Studio 2017 tonight. I'll start with a little bit of a trip down memory lane. In 2002, who used this in 2002? Okay, maybe a third of the audience. Okay, if you think about the highlight in that version, well, I think most people were pretty excited about the web forms. 2003, well, that was, well, I'd call that a consolidation release because we had plenty of problems with .NET 1.0. It was very fresh. The best thing that we got was 1.1, I'd say. But we also got this little company come out, and who would have thought they'd be long stayers, and that was ReSharper, and most of us couldn't do without ReSharper. 2005, well, what do you think the best thing in 2005 was? There's local web servers. I might say TFS 2005, but if you remember back to then, you probably wouldn't say it then, because it used to take about 3 days to install. I think the most important thing was generics, because we still use it today. 2008, well, we got lots of cool things coming out. We got MVC1, which we didn't at the time think was as cool as we started thinking over time. We got JavaScript Intellisense. That became more important as we did more Intellisense. Load testing. There was these iPhone and Androids came out back then. Not that we could do much with them. I think the biggest thing was Link, and we still use that today. It was like 7 years before the Java guys got it. 2010, what was the best thing? Well, Microsoft came to the party with their Windows Phone, and you usually say better late than never, don't you? Except in this case. We got Test Manager. That was the first time testers and developers were talking to each other on the one system. So that was good. We got MVC. That became great. I'm going to actually tell you the best feature in there was IntelliTrace. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because I think almost all the customers that I had that bought what we now call Enterprise, but we used to call Ultimate back then, they bought it for that feature. The idea of never having a bug that was not reproducible was delicious, okay? Some customers still do it. It's not mainstream still, but I think it was a massive marketing success for sure, and good piece of technology, just not well adopted. 2012, well, we got lots of cool stuff. We got a lot of black and white back then. That really annoyed people. If you remember on the top of user voice, that was the #1 thing by an order of magnitude. We got IntelliTrace in production for the first time, MVC 3 and 4. I love this exploratory testing. I think we couldn't do without NuGet. I'm going to say the best feature in there for me was storyboarding, and the reason for that is because it was the first time we had a tool that we could talk to business users with. And it was in the box when there was Balsamiq and others, but here it was nice and easy. This was very easy to whip up in a client specification and press F5. So I liked it a lot. Anyway, 2013, we got, well, I love CodeLens. It's a beautiful little thing. I rarely see people turn it off. We got some, well, I don't know why they released Team Rooms. That didn't go anywhere. So we have Microsoft Teams now, which is better, or even better, go with Slack. We got Git support. That was a TypeScript. That was huge, TypeScript. But I'm going to say the #1 thing was visualstudio.com. And at the time, the Visual Studio TFS team did not want to do this. They were mandated to do this by the bosses, the big bosses. They had a lot of requests from all the MVPs and all the users. And one of the top of the list was not give us a cloud-based version of TFS. But Microsoft were investing heaps in Azure, and it's kind of interesting. We would put this at the top now. We would say, I don't want to manage my own TFS server. In fact, I just did a session at TechEd with Daniel Malik on this, and we upload that version to SSW TV as well about how to move it to the cloud, and that's the end of TFS in the office. So the other thing we noticed was Microsoft started changing the way they were delivering stuff. They were delivering stuff to us every 2 years. It was like this massive kind of trying to boil the ocean approach. they started giving us these updates which were not service packs. And they had some little fixes, and as we got going, they started giving us more and more stuff in here. We would get a whole lot of Git improvements. We'd get new versions of JSON editors. We'd get all these nice charts in the portal. We'd get tagging, work items without tags. Okay, that's how we had to live before. And this load testing, I think, was awesome, because we got load testing and app insights. They're huge products, and we got them in an update. We also got Cordova tooling. So Cordova, of course, at that point in time, we could have gone out and bought Xamarin, but it's very expensive. And so Microsoft gave us Cordova, and Cordova allowed us to target or build hybrid apps against all three. And something you might find interesting, if you have a look at, has anyone looked at Power Apps? Who's looked at Power Apps? Just one. So we've built a couple of little internal solutions on it, our expense. If you want to do an expense request, you do it on our little Power Apps thing. It will probably get more and more popular over time. It is a mobile, you build it in a little, like a Power BI designer, and you just deploy it. It's a cloud-based mobile app thing. That was built on Cordova. Okay, so you can tell when you do a bit of coding, it's case sensitive and stuff. All right, anyway, so I'd say Cordova is the big one. Update 4, we got lots of cool things, and I think the biggest thing would be release management. That's a web-based version of a deployment tool. We heavily use, many of the guys here heavily use Octopus. Other guys go straight for release management, and it depends which client they're working with. Some clients have a massive problem with buying third-party stuff. If it's in the box, and even though they're a big, rich company, you can't get them to buy stuff outside the Microsoft ecosystem very easily. And so we go with that, it works and it's fine. But there's other people, Adam Stevenson says, you couldn't pry Octopus from his cold, dead hands, So he's a complete Octopus dude. Visual Studio 2015, what did we get? We got our menus became title case. What else? Perf tips. Yeah, so I'd say the biggest thing, and most people would say, would be Roslyn. Roslyn was a different compiling engine, and a lot of this was built purely for to support Xamarin. Okay, so it's a pretty important release. All right. I should also call out this, which I was calling ASP.NET 5, and I probably still do sometimes. It's ASP.NET Core 1. And we went live on this in beta, and that was an important product, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And 2015 update 1, we got some cool stuff in that as well. I would say go-to implementation was probably the most important bit, and that was only important if you didn't own ReSharper. How many people here have ReSharper? Okay, so 70–80% of the room. With that, so that allowed you, especially more and more people using dependency injection, and F12 doesn't cut it, and so that was a pretty important feature they added in to get us by. But obviously you'd still use ReSharper, wouldn't you? So update 2, whoa, what do we get here? We got Hockey app for mobile apps. Team Explorer got a lot better. I think that the best thing was probably this auto update extensions. We have it's hard to believe it took until update 2 of 2015 before our extensions would automatically tell us that they're out of date. All right, and update 3, what do we got here? The one I was asking for years before. I think I was asking for it with the MVPs for about 5 years, and they were making a joke of me in the end. But this one, the marketplace. We need that marketplace early, but we got it. And there's another one I'm just going to call out, this add reference using NuGet. If you say come in here and go new GitHub client, it looks up its internal cache, and a light bulb pops and says, hello, do you want to be using OctoKit? And you click, yep. find and install the latest version from the web, and it says I'm going to add this line of code into the using statement and grab that one. Do you want to take it? So I don't like Visual Studio doing anything that you don't know what it's doing, and this is kind of nice. All right, a little about me. I am a Microsoft Regional Director, an ASP Insider. I am mostly known for crashing a Tesla. Crashed the first Tesla in Australia. Although, that was, if you look closely, that was April 1st. And that was purely just to do a test on my wife. I didn't realise that would get some such notoriety. My wife apparently never looks at Facebook. That's like her war cry. She doesn't have time for Facebook. She's too busy. Well, I posted this up, and within minutes, she called me on the mobile and said, "Are you an idiot? Take that off Facebook. You don't have insurance." All right. So anyway, that was a good trick. All right. And I have two beautiful girls, and this is what I looked like when Visual Studio first came out. Gee, I was young. That was my little Eve. So hopefully, how many people have already installed Visual Studio 2017? Ooh, hardly anyone. Okay, just a few. So I guess my goal is for you to realize that this version is worth installing by the end of tonight. We have many guys. In fact, most of the guys here who are working on serious projects in production, they've been using it for 2 months, okay, and without a hassle. So I think it's ready. It's already stable and ready. But if you can't wait, you can wait another couple of weeks and it'll be an RTM. All right, okay. So let's go through. I've divided this talk up into a few sections tonight. But the first section, let's talk about the biggest gripes, because I'm always interested to know, does the new version fix the biggest things people are whinging about? Here are the biggest user gripes. And where do you think I got them from? Where do you think I got the biggest user gripes from?
User voice.
User voice. Excellent. So the number one thing up there, like this is the developer area, people want to install, to create a build server without installing Visual Studio on it. I personally don't get this. I see this as a one-time piece of pain, but it's a really common pain. All the MVPs complain about it all the time. There is some blogs out there that tell you how to do this without installing Visual Studio, but they're not legal. And so people won't do it when they work at proper big companies.
Installing Visual Studio takes about 400 hours, and that's possibly a reason for it.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to encourage you to put your hand up and get the mic, because the online guys always complain when they can't hear what you're saying. Okay, anyway, I'm just going to tell you very quickly, just know that's done. So in the old days, it would take you about half a day to get this machine up and running. Now we're talking about 20 minutes. You just download this build agent .zip and you're pretty much good to go. Be aware it doesn't support XAML builds. Does anyone here care about the old XAML builds? One person. So it's a pretty quick conversion, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. You can get it converted. We're talking like 15, half an hour, you have it converted. All right, another one that's up there that's popular, and I'm not going to tell you the rest whether they got done until the end of the night, and you'll work it out anyway. So this is a really popular one. Can we have these transforms that we get on web.config? Can we have it on some other settings files? Maybe like, I guess they're thinking like JSON files or other config files, or I don't know. Would you want it on any file at all? That could be dangerous, couldn't it? Because then it would be a bit like a trigger. You know how like you forget about SQL Server triggers and things weird are happening, and then finally you find out that was a bloody trigger and you're really frustrated because you don't think about it? Yeah, if weird things were happening and then somebody had used a transform on a weird file, that would possibly be like that. Who knows? Another one, add non-nullable reference types. So yeah, people just want to do it like this. It's kind of nicer, I guess.
Please explain.
Oh, it's just a request that they don't want variables to be null.
So what happens? So what happens? Does it throw an exception if I pull it with a null?
Yes, they wouldn't. Yes, they basically don't want. Well, you wouldn't even be able to compile it. Okay. So the next one, people want universal apps. on Android and iOS. I think a few people glaze over as soon as they see the word universal apps these days, which is fair enough. I think we might not need this with Xamarin and how that is going to be kind of building everything we want that way, I think. Do we have it? Yeah. It's not quite there in Xamarin, but it feels like Xamarin are going to give us the ability to build for all the mobile apps, including a Windows 10 one. So I think it's going to be solved the other way around. Here's another one, null pointer exception error messages. People want, people hate this error. Object reference, yes, they don't know what the null is. People want XAML debugging. If we got XAML debugging, it might help us want to build more Xamarin apps in XAML. We have a number of clients that go ahead, and when you build a Xamarin app, you have to decide, am I going to do this in C# or Xamarin? They often choose C# and then go, oh, I wish we had just gone with XAML. That would have been nicer. Anyway, this would help with that decision. Make the installation of Visual Studio more lightweight and faster, please. It takes too long. Give us a task manager, please. Like, we have a Windows task manager. Wouldn't it be nice to get a Visual Studio task manager so we knew which extensions were terrible? We have guys in our office, as soon as Visual Studio is slow, they just blame ReSharper and then they don't use it again. Okay, and I never think that they've got any basis for that, but you can't get them to reinstall it if they've had performance problems. They just can't get work done. Make solutions load faster. When I open up a big, massive solution, I just waiting too long. I don't understand the pain of this one because you just open up. It's once a day, or probably once every few days if you just leave your machine on or hibernate. Anyway, people want to debug in Visual Studio using Chrome. They don't want to be stuck on IE DevTools because they suck. All right, so now you've got a bit of an idea what most people are complaining about. And like anything, they've fixed some things, haven't fixed others. They've gone and made investments in areas we haven't even asked for. So let me just recap, because I did this session last year. In fact, I've been lucky enough for Microsoft. I've been doing the introductory session of what's new in Visual Studio every year since 2001. So this is now my 16th year doing this. Shows I'm getting old, doesn't it? It's pretty incredible. But yeah, I just did this up at Ignite on the Gold Coast. So it was fun. I see the same people in the audience this year in, year out. All right, so .NET Core. Well, I talked about this last year, and this is the biggest update since version 1, okay? It's faster. It allows cross-platform development. You can just do it on a Mac, just write your code. So that's showing a bit of love for Macs. We've got cross-platform deployment. We can deploy it to a Linux server. Okay, so Microsoft loves Linux now. And it's open source. So those 4 reasons, which one's the most important to you? Who says the most important to you is the performance reason? It's faster. So just less than a quarter. Who says the fact that I can develop on a Mac or anywhere I want? Okay, less than a quarter. Who says that they want to deploy it to a Linux server wherever they want to deploy it to? Okay, and there we go, 2/3 of the room. And who cares that it's open source? Oh, almost a quarter. Right, okay, cool. Anyway, so there's lots of different reasons. This one certainly improves the perception, doesn't it? And also the ability that you can jump in and look at the code without any problems and try to understand better what's going on. Anyway, so in 2016, when it was released, I said, all right, this is how it works. You got this new project. You can see some different file types. One of the things you're going to be aware of is there's no csproj. Csproj is gone. We're using project.json. Forget about XML. We're JSON all the way. Forget about web.config. It's config.json. Okay? Forget about packages.config. We're going package.json. All right, so
I'm back, baby. I'm back, baby.
all right. So anyway, this blog came out recently From Microsoft. When we started building .NET Core and ASP.NET Core, it was important to have a project system that worked across Windows, Mac and Linux and worked with editors other than Visual Studio. The new project.json project format was created to facilitate this. The feedback from customers was they loved this new project.json model, but they wanted their projects to be able to work with the existing .NET code they already had. So in order to do this, we're making .NET Core become CS MS Build based, so it can interop with existing .NET projects. So we're taking the best features of project.json and moving them to CS Proj. Okay, welcome back CS Proj. So hopefully you didn't spend too much time investing in that stuff. We did. We went live on we went through the betas. I think I made a bad call because we went very early and I didn't know there'd be so many betas and so many RCs. That said, the project went well, but I think the developers really felt under the pump and a bit burnt, okay? Because it was meant to be just a couple of RCs and then we were gone. But anyway, so all cool. So forget about this JSON stuff that I said. So it's CS Proj, and forget about this config.json, it's web.config, just the old way. All right. Now, and also you can use packages.config, but really I don't think there's much purpose. I think that most people will just not worry about that because that can just go into web application.csproj, so the main csproj file. I should also mention to you, one of the reasons that people were pretty excited about those JSON files is they were very simple. You didn't need any design. You could just start and put the stuff in there. It was very human readable. So what they did is they went back to the config files and they made them simpler, and you could kind of write them now because they're not as complex as before. So anyway, so if you have the existing files and you've gone early, this will happen. You'll open the folder and this will pop up. It says, hey, you should review your project and solution changes. These projects you've done are either not supported or they need project behavior impacting modifications to open this version of Visual Studio. There's no apology in here. Projects not displayed either. You wouldn't know that you think you've done something wrong and you press OK. You just think, oh, I just read an error message. You don't know that that's going to go and convert something. Anyway, so it goes, if you don't want to do it that way, you can open up the command prompt and go .NET migrate. Nice and simple. This will pop open. You'll get a green message and that's done. So it's a pretty simple migration back, but just be aware that happens. A one-time piece of pain. Also, last year I told everyone about these DNX, DNVM, KPM, all this infrastructure of running a .NET Core project. So you need a runtime, that's called DNX. You need a version manager, DNVM. And you need a package manager to go and grab all the packages, that's KPM. Can you remember that? All right, so if you watched GitHub, you would see that this was all very transparent. They were making major modifications as we were going along, and we saw all this get renamed. So what did we have? You'd download the DNVM, you'd install the DNX, you'd restore your packages with KPM, and then you'd use DNX to run the app. Okay, so 2017, forget about those names. It's now called .NET Run. Forget about that name, it's called .NET Upgrade. Forget about that name, it's called .NET Restore. Is that cleaner? Much cleaner, isn't it? Yeah. And I find it interesting they actually called it .NET Run. They didn't call it .NET Core Run. So to me, that indicates that Microsoft, well, I think that they're thinking, well, this will be .NET, bugger the other one. This could be the way forward they're thinking, just from the names. Anyway, you can see what's going on. They're very transparent up at ASP.NET Home, and they even run their stand-ups on YouTube, called community stand-ups. Anybody watch one of those? With Hanselman, and you watched one. Why didn't you watch another one? Was it fun to watch one?
Yeah, it was actually pretty interesting.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm surprised that more people haven't copied Hanselman and Damien Edwards and done more of these stand-ups that are public. I get to see these some of these kind of stand-ups, like recorded videos from the TFS and visualstudio.com team. And they're really compelling to watch, like really compelling. They do some good things. I find the way that they do it even better than the way Scott Hanselman and Damien Edwards do theirs, which is kind of a chat. All right, so how do we do it now?
What did you learn from seeing them?
Well, Greg, go and watch one and you'll see, but they have some really interesting conversations how they're kind of thinking through the API and stuff. The difference between theirs, which is a lot of conversations about what's coming up in kind of the next sprint, and the way that the TFS team do it, the TFS team do it based on something that we played at a sprint review for feedback, where you're seeing the sausage kind of get made with the conversations with Scott Hanselman. I will tell you, we do something a little bit similar, and I don't want to get too distracted, but so we have this product called Sugar Learning. And Sugar Learning, each sprint review, the guys working on it, this is just an induction management system, but they do PBIs and they show us the PBIs. But they also, if you look closely down here, where is it? Videos. Some of those videos we put live because they're good enough for other people to see it. So here are some of the here are some of the videos. I'll just go and how do I get to the channel? There's the channel. And so he's added a history view. So let's have a look at this.
Hi, I'm Declan Dovel.
Actually, let's play this one. He's improved the search. And so that's a 2-minute video. It'll be a bit long to go through, but let's have a look. So he's just showing how the search
Hi, my name's Anthony, and today I'm going to show you some of the issue and problem with the way we design our using device for the search box. The first problem is the add items menu option is hidden under cog menu. So what is requested is we want to have that button
So
visible.
I won't play that all for you, but he walks you through and then he kind of says, this is how I've gone ahead and fixed it. And if we're happy with it, we take that during the sprint review. But we just put it up here anyway. All right, and it's a little bit similar with how the TFS team work, which is a bit different from how Scott Hanselman works. Moving forward, this is how we run a .NET Core app now. We go .NET New, .NET Restore, and .NET Run. So that looks pretty simple, isn't it? So let's go ahead here, .NET New. And now we'll go, and that's create a folder, and we'll go .NET Restore, and that's going to go and grab a whole lot of packages. And now we're going to go .NET Run, and that's going to run a command line. And this is a command line prompt, and we get hello world. Now that's the most simplest of projects. So let's go forward and see what's involved with this. We go .NET New, and that creates a folder with a couple of files in, because that's the most simple of all projects. And now we go .NET Restore, and that looks in the CS_proj file, finds out what packages are, and goes and grabs them. And then .NET Run. All right. So it builds and runs the project, and in this case, a console app, we just get hello world. Pretty simple, right? So let's go ahead. Are you happy with all the changes? Who's happy with what they're seeing now? Okay. Who wouldn't use this stuff? No, no one. Okay, great.
This is pretty similar to Node.js.
Pretty similar to Node.js. Yeah, good observation. Yes, pretty similar. Microsoft, Mike.
What would happen if you place two .NET applications, EXEs, in a folder and say run .NET Run?
Oh, what are you trying to do?
If you just put the EXEs in a folder and you say .NET Run, it's
Which
not gonna run .NET Run because it's a project, right?
Which exe?
Well, let's say there was the
So it's looking at the CS_proj file.
Yeah.
So you don't put an exe in the folder. This is just, if we have a look, we've just got a CS_proj file. So you don't put an exe in this folder. It's just we're typing commands in here, but we're not putting .NET into this folder. Okay. Yep. So, all right, so that's right. So I want to move on to a web project. So here's a web project, because that was a too simple project. So what's the difference? We go .NET new -t web. So -t means template and web. So then .NET restore, same as what we just did, and .NET run. Okay, let's have a look at this. Now, be aware that this is now using a new web server. It's using the Kestrel web server. The Kestrel web server is, replaces Cassini and Windows-specific things. Forget about IIS. We're using a Kestrel web server. So let's have a look here. We are going to, in this case, we're going to type .NET new -t web. And then .NET restore, and it's going to look inside that project and restore all the packages. Now we're going to have a lot more files than those couple. And now .NET run. And .NET run will kick open that web server, and then it's going to be, you can see localhost :5000 there. And now it's got a web server running. Okay, so that's what's involved. Now obviously you can do this from the nice GUI, but this is the most basic of basic. So let's, when you run that, you go localhost :5000, that's what you got. That's the default template. Great. So what happened? Let's go back. When we ran that .NET new -t, we got a whole lot of folders there. We got a controllers folders, a views folder. We didn't get a models folder. I think that's a limitation because it would be empty. NuGet cannot add an empty folder. But you can go and add a models folder if you want. You got www.root folder with you can put all your images in there. So that's kind of the out-of-the-box experience. And so .NET restore will go through and restore all those packages, and you can see, the guts of here. We got MVC. Well, this is for Web API and the guts of it. And then .NET run. The Kestrel web server runs, and there we go. We can open up a browser and have a look. So if you look closely, you probably never will, and I guess nobody ever does, but if you look here closely, you can see, well, there is the home controller and the index action, and that's being executed there. And then if we look here, we can see this, the views, home, index, CS, HTML being served there. And then if you look further down, there's all the CSS and images and JavaScript files and all those being requested down there. Okay, so summary. It's fast. It's 1.5 million requests per second. Lightning fast, way faster than IIS. It runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac, and that's how you execute it. So we've just been through that. Cool. Who likes the look of that? Yes, everyone. Anybody not? Great, awesome. So now we've got the basics going. You have to kind of work out now, are you going to be using Visual Studio or are you going to be using VS Code? All right, who's using VS Code already? Just a couple. All right, not hardly any. So almost everyone in the room is using Visual Studio, and that's pretty normal, but how many people are doing big JavaScript frameworks like Angular or React or anything like that? Who's going down that path? Can I just see a full show of hands? Who's going down the rich JavaScript route? Just a few. And that's probably why that answer before was very few on VS Code. And we'll talk about that. So you need to get up and running in VS Code or get up and running in VS 2017. All right. So I think I have a bit of a goal now. I want you guys to understand when you should be using VS Code and when you should be using Visual Studio as well, because I think that we've done a lot of learnings inside the company when you should be using one and the other. I think it's fair to say that I think there's a famous saying, don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Anyone heard that one? It's a good one, isn't it? Einstein said that. If you're an Angular dude and you try to do all your stuff inside Visual Studio 2017, you will find it kind of painful. You can do your job, but it's a bit painful. I think you'll be more relaxed and getting things done nicer without a whole lot of auxiliary stuff if you're in VS Code. If you are doing a whole lot of web services and web API and you're doing that in VS Code, I think you'll find it more painful than it needs to be, and you should be doing that in Visual Studio. Okay, that'd be like the executive summary of what goes on in our office. Okay, so let's go through a bit of a history with this stuff. 1983, this was when Ned Kelly was a boy. We had Notepad, and we were doing everything in Notepad. And yes, right?
Windows didn't exist in 1983.
Yes, it did.
No.
Yeah, that's...
1985.
Well, I'm going off Wikipedia. All right. Maybe it was Windows 1, was it?
1985.
1985, all right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, you might be right. I got it from Wikipedia.
It might be Notepad for DOS, though.
Might be Notepad for DOS. There we go. All right. So we got Notepad, and what gets me is they've never improved anything. And I have this German guy here, and I was complaining about how it doesn't, like, can you believe they've never even added like recent menu? He goes, what are you talking about? They've never added a recent menu. And I said, they've never added a recent menu. And he said, yes, they have. And I said, let me open it up and show you. They've never added a recent menu. And he comes here and goes, what are you talking about? There's a recent menu. I never really thought of that as a recent menu, but anyway. Yeah, don't argue with the German. So in 2003, we got Notepad++. 2008, we got Sublime, huge. 2014, Atom was popular. And then, weirdly, in 2015, Microsoft released VS Code. And that was odd. Like, they're getting into this space. Why are they doing that? Isn't Visual Studio a big text editor kind of as well? Anyway, so they announced a preview of that in November. And so if you think about it, it's been around for a couple of years by now. And we got 1.0 in April, and then I think in May we got released to the web. So things have been moving. So if you look closely at the popularity, and this is Google Trends, you can kind of see Visual Studio Code. Now it was released around here. Look at the big thing. So forget about this. A lot of people search on the words Visual Studio and Code. So that bit has to be taken off. But you can see it's growing. You can also see Notepad and Sublime. But whenever anyone shows you a Google a trends, can you see the problem here? Be careful when people give you trends. They have to change the categories. See the categories? From all categories to development tools or whatever it is. And so this shows you much more accurately. So if you look at this, you can see Sublime is really popular. You can also see that Notepad++ hasn't changed. He plods along. He's pretty popular. Forget about Notepad, but look at the growth of VS Code. It's growing fast. Anyway, so there's front-end developers. Front-end developers, they usually good-looking dudes. They would never install Visual Studio. They say it's a massive thing to install, and it's too slow during the day, and it's got menus everywhere which they couldn't understand anyway. They're just doing JavaScript, so what do they need all that for? They use Macs, and the language is typically a JavaScript and HTML, CSS, Angular, or React, or something like that. Okay? Now, they also care about CSS less than Sass. Now, this dude, you just thought he's some cool, front-end developer. This dude is a lowlife. He's a real-life lowlife. He's the one that dumped our Kylie. You didn't notice that, did you? Anyway, so let's move on to .NET developers. A .NET developer knows that Visual Studio is too slow, doesn't mind. He's okay, uses Windows. He cares about productivity. He cares about Intellisense. He cares about navigating code using Peak. He cares about CodeLens. He's not giving all this stuff up. He wants great debugging experiences. He would never use, he's so old, he's done the old response.write. He's not doing that again. Okay, so now I should tell you that there's a few kinds of developers. Now the back-end developer is wondering why everyone's having problems with light bulbs. He realizes he forgot to deploy the light to the database, so he just runs a script and he keeps calm, and then he blames the front end for any problems that happen, okay? There's operations. They get paged at 2 a.m. to fix light bulbs. They hand out flashlights and they go back to sleep. And then there is the front-end developer. They find out the light bulb is broken. They cover the light bulb with yellow paint. They tell the back end that the light bulb works, but only during the day. That is typical front-end developers. Now, I go and talk to a lot of companies. And when I go to talk to companies, I find that the conversations are disproportionate on the amount of time we're talking about Angular and all their front-end technologies. And they just talk about this. They put a lot of resources on it. I think it consumes so much of their front of mind that they've got it out of proportion. The front end that we're discussing will be replaced in 2 years, whatever we do. I bet you all those services and the schema and all the back end that they put much less thinking into will be there for a lot longer and cause them more pain over time when that API isn't logical, it isn't rock solid. You know, that is, anyway, so the way I think about it in my head is that is VS Code and that is Visual Studio, okay? That's kind of the way I think you should be thinking about it. Anyway, if you, my stats on this, the .NET developer and the front-end developer, you can see the front-end developer is exactly, I reckon actually it's an order of magnitude worse than this in my conversations. Now remember, you've got to change that to programming and you'll see it's slightly worse. Okay, so let's talk about the VS Code features. This is a little baby thing that you install. It's 30 megs. It runs Windows and Mac. It supports 30 languages out of the box. It has Git built into the menus. It's got extensions, and it's got great things in it such as Intellisense, peak definition, debugging. Let's have a quick look. This is what it looks like. It's got a cool black menu, server, and you can, there it is. So that's Intellisense. So you get that with VS Code. It's as good as Visual Studio with that. It's also got peak, so you can quickly look at a method and without losing context like F12 would, we can quickly see what's in there, we can scroll down, and we're only looking at that little bit in the context of what we're looking at. So let's start debugging a .NET Core web application. So this is the story. We're going to, what you'll find, and there's a few guys that have got up and running in VS Code already, you'll find that the out-of-the-box experience is, well, it's not like a Tesla. You don't just get in there and start driving. It's like you've got to bolt a few things together before getting going. Okay, it'd be like my wife trying to drive a manual for the first time, okay, which she's never done, and she actually has a hard time driving a different, when we get a rental car, like it's automatic, will not drive, will not. In fact, my wife can drive from Coogee to Neutral Bay without changing lanes. Is that amazing? Yeah, it's incredible. Actually, I rely on drivers like my wife because you can just go up the side, or they're all like that. Anyway, so this is the experience. The experience is a bit like a manual. So I want to quickly show you. You can go Project Awesome, file new Project Awesome. What do you expect to do? We just want to debug. We want to set a breakpoint and debug. Let's have a look at what's involved. Here it is, looking pretty cool, right? So we've just created Project Awesome. What do we do to run this thing? You know what to do? How do we run this thing? Well, we're going to click this little green button. Okay? So we click the little green button. This will pop open. You go, huh? Okay, what do we want to do here? I don't want Node. It's there twice. I'm not sure why. I'll choose .NET Core. That's what I'm after. So we click that, and it goes, whoa, what happened? So what it does is it adds a couple of these JSON files, which weren't there. You go, whoa, that's cool. So we've got this JSON file. You might have a quick look at the JSON file. And you can see, well, it's telling Visual Studio how it's going to run the application. And you go, all right, well, it needed a file. Good to go. Let's try that again. So you click on this little guy, and you go, click, and it goes, there's no task runner configured. Okay, I didn't know I needed one of those, so I'll just click Configure Task Runner. Click. And it goes, what task runner? Well, if you know what you're talking, you know that grunt is dead. It doesn't say rip. Gulp is RIP as well. Which one should we choose? TypeScript sounds cool, but it's actually .NET Core. So let's choose our .NET Core type runner. Okay, so now we're good to go. So what do we do now? We click this run button. Okay, you ready? Click. It says, launch JSON must be configured. Launch JSON. You added launch JSON. Anyway, so let's click that. How many people can spot the error? Put your hand up if you spot the error. Full show of hands, come on. We got one. Come on. Got 2, 3, all right. Cool. So if you look closely, what this should say is fill in the blank here. Okay, but it looks like it's actually there. So we've got to put Project Awesome there. Anyway, so when you, they should auto correct that personally. But if you have a look in this file, which you probably will then start looking because you've got to work out what the error is, you'll see there's a path to the core app, and you can see that this is telling it what to do when the browser. So you can see there's a Windows one here, there's an OS X one here, and there's Linux. So whichever one you're on, you might configure that to open browsers and do things. All right, cool. So now we understand that file. We'll go back here and replace that with projectawesome.dll. And that should be good. And we'll give this another go. You ready? You ready? Let's click. Click. And it says, download .NET Core Debugger in the command palette. What is a command palette? Well, you'll know that there's a keystroke to get you the command palette. If you don't know the keystroke, you go View, Command Palette. Okay, it won't take you long. You'll find that. You'll open that up, and you'll press Close on that, and then you'll open this command palette, and you'll type download .NET Core Debugger, right? So there's, sorry?
That's intuitive.
Yeah, that's, well, they just told you what to do. So you should know what to do. They just said download the .NET Core Debugger, but maybe you might not read error messages, which is pretty common. Anyway, so this starts doing this, and you download package OmniSharp. Who's heard of OmniSharp before? Anyone heard of OmniSharp? Not a soul. Well, let me just tell you a little story. There is a guy called Jason Emerson. He is a guy from Manchester. He's just a coder at a company. And he decides he wants to start his own. You should be grateful. I think I'm one of the few people that know this story. He decides, because I wanted to know what possessed him to do this, but I'll tell you. So Jason Emerson, he goes home and he goes, I want to start on my own personal project at home, but I don't want to feel like I'm at work. I want to do this little pet project. I want to do it in Linux. So he starts with Notepad, or he's starting to use Vim, a nice black screen. And get this, he realizes he needs Intellisense. Now, instead of giving up on that idea and just booting into Windows and using Visual Studio, he decides he will write Intellisense for Vim. Okay? So he writes Intellisense for Vim, and then he gets going on his personal project. He reads on a blog one day about some guy using Emacs and how he wishes he had Intellisense because he's doing C# development. And so the whole reason that I asked Jason, why didn't you just go back to Windows and use Visual Studio? I didn't want to feel like I was at work, Adam. I do not get that boundary, but anyway. So he reads this blog and he goes, you know what? This poor guy needs what I've already built. He tells the guy in a comment on his blog, I have something that I've written. I could put it up somewhere. And then he decides, I'll put it up on GitHub, creates a GitHub account, and needs a name for his project. And goes, what will I call it? I'd like to call it C# everywhere. I won't call it that. I'll be creative. I'll make it everywhere C#. And then he goes, what's the Greek word for everywhere? It's omni. So he calls it omni#. And then he uploads it to GitHub. These other guy, and he helps this guy use it for Emacs. And then unbeknownst to him, you know, when you put things up on GitHub, things just happen. Some Korean dudes that he has no idea who they are, they create it to work with Atom, or what's one of the other text editors? Was it Sublime? I think, yeah, they did it for Sublime, you're right. And then some guys from England took over and maintained the project. And then he gets a call from Microsoft. This is like 4 years later. And I think it was David Fowler from the ASP.NET team covertly starts talking to him, because they don't want to tell him that they're developing this. I don't know if they were actually developing this at that time. But saying, hey, what you've done there with that Intellisense everywhere, that's pretty cool. Maybe you can help us do it for Atom. So then he starts helping them do it for Atom, and then it ends up in Monaco. You know how in visualstudio.com you can actually do coding. So it ends up in there, and then it ends up in here, and then he changes, because the compiler that he used for Monaco and those things is he went and ripped it out of Xamarin, because that was open source. So he took that compiler, and when Microsoft released Roslyn, then he switched the compiler. Anyway, there's a backstory for that Omni#. Sorry about that. So it starts automatically downloading Omni#, and then we're ready to go, I think. We press this button. Should we? Yeah. We press it again, and bingo, finally. So to get it going, we drop down into our breakpoint, and we're all happy. So.
We could just use Visual Studio and have been here for about 4 hours.
Thank you. Yes. All right. So it's just like this, Greg. You come through and jump through a hoop, and another hoop, and another hoop, and one final hoop, and you're in business. That's how it is. All right, let's watch that again. So we select the .NET Core environment, the task runner, update the DLL, download the core debugger, and we're done. Great. So that was that. Now I'm going to tell you something else. That, as far as I know, how many people here know about the Visual Studio Code Insiders version? 1. Okay, you should get a gold star. Okay, and very, very few people know about this. So this is another version that you can get. And I'm going to tell you, you definitely should install these. They install side by side, and this is what happens when you install this guy. Now, be aware that this preview version updates every day. It's always updating. I should also tell you, every single person in our Queensland office runs this, and I ask them all, has anybody had one issue with this? Because updating daily, and they've been running some large projects up there for a long time, they have never once had an issue. Okay? So, have you had an issue, sir? Not once. Yeah, pretty amazing. I'm sure something will go wrong, but so far it's been rock solid, considering it gets updated daily. The experience is better, but you've got to be aware. It's only for real men. Okay? Otherwise, you go back to the other one. So, let's have a look here. Let's open that C# file again, Project Awesome, and you'll notice even when you do nothing, it starts downloading Omni#, because it sees the C# file and it automatically fixes that. So it detects that. It knows we need the .NET Core debugger, so it just starts downloading that guy too, without even asking, just being automatic, okay? So then it puts up this little warning, doesn't tell you you've made an error. It just says, we need some required assets. Is that cool? Yes, no? I'll say yes. All right, so we click yes. And over there, that launch.json and task.json. Now be aware that puts it in a folder called .vs code. Okay? Now in Visual Studio, we also have one of those folders, and it's called .vs. Okay, cool. So there are those two folders. Let's go and look at one of those. Remember that launch.json? Let's go and have a look at that guy. Do you notice anything different about this one? What's different? It's already put the project awesome.dll. Okay? So that was pretty sweet. Thank you. Very good. And it just runs. Okay, so how many hoops were there? 1 hoop just to download VS Insiders. That's it. Cool? Great. So, the summary of VS Code Insiders. It's a much nicer experience. It's got bleeding edge features, daily releases, and I think it's pretty cool. How many people think VS Code sounds pretty cool? Okay, all right, everyone. Okay, so before we move on, I don't want you to fall asleep. Everyone stand up. This is voluntary. I just don't want you to fall asleep for the next section. Wiggle, a bit to the left, a bit to the right. Oh. Okay, we've got to do this we've got a fair session ahead. All right, let's get going. So now we're going to talk about VS 2017. And there's a fair bit in here. So let's do exactly what I just did before in Visual Studio, just so you know. You go File, New Project. You type in Project Awesome, and you choose this ASP.NET Core Web Application. You'll notice that the icon is wrong. Okay, I know a lot of people would be frightened of VB. I took one of the SSWTV guys, Raj, and we went up the coast, and there was a huntsman in the boot as we left here. There was a huntsman, and he starts screaming. There's a huge huntsman. Oh, he didn't know it was a huntsman. He just knows the big spider. He's from England, so he's very frightened of spiders, and he's English. And so I said, "Oh, don't worry about that." And there was there's a little implement there, so I just got it and I flicked it. He goes, "Where'd it go?" I said, "It went out on the road somewhere." He goes, "I can't see it on the road. Where is it?" "I cannot see it on the road." I said, "I flicked it away." Anyway, he wasn't very convinced, but it was flicked away. Anyway, about 8 hours later, we are coming back down the coast. It's now darkish. And he's sitting in the back. I'm driving. And then the huntsman appears above the window. And it's not moving, he's just sitting there. Well, he starts screaming. I think the amount of screaming caused the huntsman to start walking towards him on the roof. And he's screaming at me to pull over, but I'm going down the freeway. It's only a huntsman, it's not going to kill him. Well, I think he was going to try to get out of the car moving. It's quite scary. Anyway, I don't know why seeing a VB icon reminded me of that story. But some people are very frightened of VB. Anyway, so press OK. We press Web Application. We press OK, and we're in business. This is our project now. This project, if you look at it, is the same as when we went .NET new-ts web. That's the same project. In fact, if we open it up in VS Code, which we just looked at, it's identical. You can see web.config down the bottom, web.config startup. Now I know at the top it's going to look a little different because Visual Studio puts special fold, it moves things to the top just for user friendliness. And also, you can see over here that special folder that launch.json and task.json are in VS Code. Any special folders that VS Code uses are in that folder. And any ones for VS are in there. But Visual Studio decides to hide those folders. So if we went show all files, we'd see the same stuff, right? All cool? All right. So let's see what the debugging experience is like. You press F5 and you go there. Okay. You're happy, Greg. You don't need any cool tools. Anyway, you're too old to use Visual Studio Code. All right. Yeah. So we come in here, and there's the debugging experience. So now the reason that people use Visual Studio is because it's way richer. If your boss says, "Hey, can you deploy to Azure?" and you think, "I should know what Azure is. I should know how to deploy. How do I do that?" Right-click Publish to Azure. Let's try that. So we click Publish. We choose, what do we choose here? Well, we'll choose this one. Looks right. Azure App Service, I guess so. Click that. Create profile. I don't know. Looks right. I don't know. Create. You press that, and bingo, you've just deployed to Azure, and you don't even know what you're doing. Now, if you tried to do that in VS Code, you're going to be in all sorts of command prompts, trying to find right commands and stuff like that. All right. So there's the reason that people will still love Visual Studio. But the bad thing is all the extra menus everywhere. There's so many menus. If you're doing JavaScript development, you've got a myriad of menus that are nonsensical. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about my first favourite feature, okay? Now I've already told you my favourite feature, which was .NET Core, okay? I think that's the most important for all of us. But this is one that I think is good. Open folder. In VS Code, like every text editor on the planet, you can go File, Open Folder. In Visual Studio, you can now go File, Open Folder. You can open a folder without a solution file or a proj file. Isn't that magical? What an advance. It's amazing. Things that Microsoft come up with. Anyway, so you can open any folder you like now. It supports 20 languages plus. You can do PHP development or Java. You can go and install other workloads, like if you're doing R. If you're doing Power BI and you want to take it to the next level, you could use R or Python or whatever. So, just because you can doesn't mean you should. All right. So let me just go through here. So .NET Core open folder. Let's move on to my next one, which is a quicker installer and a roaming extension manager. Then I want to talk about lightweight solution loading, better Intellisense, better debugging, the JavaScript debugging in Chrome, live unit testing, code styling, and my final stuff is some C# language extensions. Now, I did this talking to many of the guys in SSW, and I will tell you there's a hell of a lot of features there, heaps. I could not get any unison where we agreed on what were the coolest features. So in the end, Tony Abbott would say I did a captain's pick, okay? Donald Trump would say he did an executive order. So I've just gone and picked a few of my favourites, but be aware there's a hell of a lot more. So I'm going to go with the quicker installer. It's a very nice, quick experience. You just go, and within a minute, you're up and running. You choose a workload. Now, I don't really know if I love this UI, but is it obvious to you that I've turned on this one, this one, this one? Like, I think it should be clearer, but personally, you got these little ticks. So everybody's going to go with web development and probably Azure. As you choose these, you look at the right and see what you're getting. I think the thing I would first care about, that I'm getting .NET Core. That would be the first thing I'm checking. Am I getting that with the options I'm choosing? Anyway, you can scroll down here. You can see there's a massive menu. There's heaps of things. You probably take mobile development with Xamarin. You might want to take Cordova as well. Take that. And you can see what you're grabbing. If you're doing a Visual Studio extension, you take that, etc., etc. And they're workloads. And there's heaps of them. There's more and more coming. So they're just a grouping of components. You might, if you're a universal Windows platform developer or a desktop developer, you'd want certain stuff, or an Azure developer or a web developer. Can I just ask, how many people here are the first type and the second type and the third? Who's a desktop developer or universal Windows platform? Wow, 60% of the room at least, maybe 70. Who's an Azure developer? Okay, or a third. Who is a web developer? 80%. All right, cool. Great. So I think I can say that this request with 1,900 votes is done. Okay? There's still probably more work to do to make it slightly faster, but it's a big improvement. Okay. Who's happy with that one? Yeah. Okay. So almost all of you. So let's talk about the next one. I thought some people wouldn't care about it actually, because it's faster, that's good. Anyway, getting up and running on a new machine. You get a fresh PC, you install Visual Studio, it's quicker now, unless you choose everything, it's still going to be slow. You reinstall your favourite extensions, such as ReSharper, such as the ones you can't remember. You got, the productivity power tools and web essentials and all these type of things. So, right now we have a new roaming extensions manager. So, it will tell you, these are the ones, and you just take them. So, just to be clear, in 2015, we already got settings. It would pull down our settings, our themes, our text editor, and all the Team Explorer settings. All our visualstudio.com projects and stuff. So all those settings we got. Now in 2017, we get the extensions added to it. So it kind of rounds that out a little. Okay? All right. So let's talk about the next one. And this is where you open up your project in the morning. It's a massive project with, who's got more than 50 projects in their solution? Oh, a few. Who's got more than 100? One. Is it 100? Close to 100. All right. Okay. He's American. They do everything big in America, don't you? Yes, everything's big and better than everyone else's. Huh? With the comb over. So, all right. So I did a test on this new feature. We have a project called Visual Studio. We have a project called sswtimepro.com, and it's a time sheeting solution we've had out there. A number of people use this for their timesheets. We've been developing since forever. It started off in Windows forms. You would remember it, Greg, wouldn't you? Yes. Well, then it went to web forms, then it went to MVC, and now Angular. And it's got lots and lots of projects in there. It's got 39 projects. So this might be similar to some of your projects. Let's see what the... So when I opened it in 2015, which was already faster than 2012, it's 11 seconds to load and 36 seconds to load the solution. Now, I should be clear, this is on a Surface Book with a super fast SSD. This is a this is i7, the top of the line Surface Book. Okay. Now, I mention this because some guys here, if they're not, some of them are, not on SSDs and things like that. Well, hopefully everyone's on an SSD, but they're not on machines as fast as this, and they load slower than this. In 2017, for me, it loaded 5 seconds, and then the project loaded in 26 seconds. So that's faster, right? Happy? Better. So then there's this setting which you can turn on called lightweight solution load. So I turned this guy on, and I did it again. Okay, so we already went through this, 11 seconds 36, and 5 seconds 26. So that was 55% faster and 27. I want to see if this setting made it any faster. And when I turn that on, same load time. But the solution loaded in 15 seconds. So they're both around 55% and 58% faster. Now, how does this thing work? Well, it seems to just do this lazy loading of projects. So when you click on one of these projects, it then goes off and loads it. Okay, so it's like Ajax for your Solution Explorer. All right. So they've got this item on user voice, and it says 1,400 votes. I'm going to say done. Who cares about this? Who gives this one a gold star? Got it. Okay, 3/4 of the room is happy. Okay. And why aren't you happy, Greg? You're very hard to make happy. Where's the mic?
It's not good enough. It's not good enough improvement.
Oh, you want faster?
Yeah. For what it's doing, I feel it should be able to be much faster than what I'm seeing there.
Okay, all right. Get a faster machine. All right.
Fair comment.
Okay. So, while we're talking about performance, sometimes we have our Visual Studio hang and it goes kind of whitish while we're waiting for it to do things. Very frustrating, especially when you don't know the source. That's all you want to know. Like, can you imagine running Windows without Task Explorer? I think that's one of the first things I open. I'm always wondering what's going on. So, if you have dodgy coffee, you know how to solve that? There's an app called Bean Hunter. Who's got Bean Hunter? One guy. Gee. Who loves their coffee? All of you. You need Bean Hunter. Okay, it's a great app. All the guys in Melbourne use Bean Hunter. Now all the guys in Brisbane use it. We just need the guys in Sydney use it. Dodgy VS extensions. What do we do about that? Well, Chrome has a task manager, okay, which I don't, I can have 50 tabs open in Chrome and 6 open in IE, and IE hangs on me. I don't know if this happens to you guys. It's damn frustrating. Anyway, we need one of these in IE. So we now have this new menu option, Manage Visual Studio Performance. I don't know why it's in the Help menu. Please tell me why. I expect to find the Tools menu. That is a weird location. But anyway, there it is. Manage Visual Studio Performance. I don't know how they choose this. But anyway, so one of the things that I'll be interested to find out from you guys, which ones do you have problems with? Do you end up having problems with ReSharper? I think ReSharper will be grateful because I think they get the blame too often. But anyway, so this one, 1,700 votes, I say done. Who cares about this? Who gives this a gold star? Okay, less than a quarter of the room. Let's move on. Okay, better Intellisense, refactoring and code analysis. Let's see if you like this stuff. So we've got camel case matching and Intellisense and match highlighting. So look at here. We are, we're going to open something. What are we doing here? var new ETS. Now that isn't a method name, but see how I picked it up?
That's good.
Yeah. And also at the top of Intellisense, it doesn't just show everything in alphabetical order, it shows the most recent ones at the top. So that's kind of better. Also, we have this filtering. Watch this. So not only do we have this, we type time, and then we can click on, say, the interfaces. So even though we haven't typed iTime, it will still find it because we've got all these buttons at the bottom, the interfaces, classes, you know, all different options. So they're the filters in the Intellisense. So hopefully that's a bit nicer. Code analysis. Code analysis starts helping us with all the new C#7 language features, which I'll come to later. There's lots of cool stuff there. I would say there's a mountain of Intellisense and refactoring and code analysis stuff. That is a request with 1,000 votes. I'm going to say kind of half done because you still need resharper if you want to do things. I'll consider this done when you don't need resharper. Okay? So, number 6, better debugging in DevOps. Now, the first one I want to show you is run to click. So, who's used run to click? Anyone? Not a soul. Okay. So, there's also a new exception helper, which I think you'll like, and better null references, attach to process, reattach, go to all, better find all references, and code lens, one of my favorite features with integration into App Insights. So here is how traditional debugging worked. Traditional debugging, we set temporary breakpoints. We would then hit F10, 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 step over, go into places of code we didn't mean to, step out, you know. So something like this. We come in here. There's our breakpoint, F10, 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 F10. And my F10 finger's getting tired. Okay. So, and then F5. And then we go through, etc. All right. So you kind of see how that works. F10, 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 F10. Yeah, it's just boring. So run to click. How does this work? So if you ever forget to clean up your breakpoints you set, does that happen to people? Yeah. As you hover over, it will show you, you'll be able to set, oh, I want a breakpoint there. And it just runs to that point instantly. So let's watch this. So you come in here, you click run to that point. And you can see things. So it's pretty simple. So we run down there, run to that point, please. We look at and we inspect all the variables. So you just click. I guess for those people that are always using keystrokes, this might not be as attractive, but because you're kind of using your mouse. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
So what would happen if you use run to click on a statement that wasn't going to be hit in that particular run?
Well, it's not going to hit.
Then it'll just quit.
I don't think it actually allows you.
It can't.
No, it can't. No. So you're right. So it's just not going to hit it. Yeah. Hold it, Mike. To the front.
And how is it different from the old Control F10?
Well, a lot of people didn't. You're talking about run to cursor?
Yeah.
Yes. I think that wasn't a well-known feature, actually. How many people use run to cursor? Okay. So, you know. So I don't think it was on the right-click menu. It was in.
It was.
Oh, was it on the right-click menu? Yeah. So it wasn't a heavily used feature. So now it's in. Now it's in here. I think I already asked Microsoft, by the way. The stats show even in the betas, this feature is way more used than that run to click. All right. So let me just explain to you. Now, if your wife, if she goes shopping for a pair of jeans at Westfield or something, so this is her route to get to the shop she's trying to get to. She goes in here, buys something, comes here through Macy's, through here. Okay, so she ends up buying that pair of pants or that dress, but it takes 3 hours, 26 minutes and costs $800. Okay, now if the bloke goes in to buy that pair of pants, he takes 6 minutes and $33. Okay, now this is very similar to the traditional debugging approach, and this is run to click. Okay, now we could have used this for Bunnings, couldn't we? And it'd be the reverse way around. Yes. Anyway, so summary: run to click. No more hitting F10, F10, F10. You just click to where you want, and it jumps to it. So who loves this? Who gives this one a gold star? Oh, okay. So it's definitely 95%. So new exception helper. Let's have a look at this one. Now this is our traditional message, which we've seen a lot. We've got an error here. It says, well, we've got a format exception. So there's not a lot of help here. I'm going to hazard a guess that some intern, you know when interns come into Microsoft, if you ever see they're all full of enthusiasm, they're looking at all this data, they're doing stuff. I reckon that some intern looked at this dialogue and goes to one of the managers, did you know I've been looking through all the stats and no developer in history has ever clicked on any of these troubleshooting tips? So it is a busy form. I didn't really think about it until I saw the new one. And it reminds me of somebody that said, I wrote a 12-page letter because I didn't have time to write a 1-page letter. And so if you look at the new one, it's cleaner. And let's have a look at what's different about this. So you can see it's just showing the error. If we go back in time, probably the most common thing people would do is they'd look at the error and then they'd copy the exception detail to the clipboard and then they'd go to Stack Overflow and paste it and see what the error is. So this is the new one. So they still have the copy button, so they can copy the error and go to Stack Overflow. But then they can drop into these and they say, look, I don't want to know when I'm getting errors on some Telerik DLL. I can't do anything about that. I want it just for my DLL, so etc. So you can do that. This is my suggestion. Search Stack Overflow. That's all I want, one button. Did anyone see my, my tweet and Facebook on that? Okay. So I put this thing up on user voice. And here it is. If you have a look there, I only had 1 vote, myself. And now I have 40. So I've tweeted that. So go to my Twitter account, find that thing, @AdamKogan, click on that, and then vote. Give it a vote. So we get our Stack Overflow. All right. Cool. Okay. So in summary, that dialogue is now cleaner. You can add conditions in there, and you drop in certain DLLs. And I am going to say that I think they've done a pretty good job there. Who gives that one a gold star? Oh, everyone. Okay, great. Popular one. So here is our null reference message. Object not set to an instance of an object. We drop in here and it says object reference not set to an instance of an object. You look at going, now we've got to start debugging and work out what happened. What is the problem? Now, you feel like that. Now in 2017, have a look at this error. It's a cleaner error and it bolds Baz so you know exactly what's going on. So I think if that's pretty clean, you know what is the actual error, where the problem is, and so we can okay. So I think it should make most of you happy. All right, so that is this better null pointer exception, 2,600 votes. All right, so I consider that done. Who gives that one a gold star?
Standing ovation.
Oh, standing ovations. Whoa! Never had a standing ovation before. Yes, some people might call that a bug fix. That would be cruel. Okay, so let's go debug, attach to process. We click on attach to process. How many people bother doing, who does this? So it affects, over half the room. Okay. So attaching to a remote process, we come in here, we click on the one we want. What do we want? We would want an IS one. Now, can anyone notice a difference? There we go. There's our difference. we've got a filter box. Now, I don't know how they did this dialog without that in the first place. Gee, I couldn't imagine doing that for our clients, but anyway, they did it. So now you type IIS, you drop down to the one you want, and then you click attach and you're good to go. Now, so we can quickly narrow it down. We have a suggestion to Microsoft. The suggestion is auto-filter that box based on the project type that you're in. If it's web, filter down to IIS Express. If it's Windows, look at the startup project's output settings and filter down to that. That's what I think would be useful. Maybe next version. So, reattach. Do you remember reattaching? When you reattach to the process, it seems to be kind of forgetful. So you click on reattach and then you have to go through the steps again. In 2015, it had Alzheimer's. In 2017, it remembers and you can just reattach. So that should be good. How many people care about that and give that a gold star? Just a few, so not even a quarter of the room. So they're all right. They shouldn't have done that one. Okay, go to all. Now, this is just trying to find code in a large solution. In 2001, we got the ability to do Control F and scroll down scroll down the Solution Explorer forever. Then we got ReSharper and we can use Control T and we go to wherever we want. 2013, they tried to make this better. Control apostrophe, and we could do the Solution Explorer search. So we got it like this. So you could type timesheet in our timesheeting solution and you could see where it was used. Some people didn't like this because it was still verbose and there's a big tree and you still scroll looking. So it was kind of noisy. I didn't think it was bad, but so it filters the Solution Explorer. It finds files or classes or properties or methods, okay? Not interfaces. There's lots of scrolling involved. 2015, things got a bit nicer. We got this with lots of little icons and bolding. So it finds files, classes, properties, methods. 2017, what do we get now? What's improved? So we've got this. And do you notice anything different? Yes, we've got filter buttons at the bottom. So we can use Control T or Control comma. It finds all these guys, but you can filter. Just like the Intellisense allows you to filter, you can filter here. So I think that's kind of nicer. So we also, if you do something like this, where you go, Control G, go to line 23 or whatever it is, it will pop open that same dialog and you can go here. Now be aware, you can type M for members and T for types, etc. And we've got the filtering, and so that's nice. So anyway, there's some of those changes. There's quite a few more, but there's some of those changes. How many people like that and give that a gold star? Okay, so almost 2/3. That's more popular. Okay, so better find all references. Let's look at find all references. Okay, so we've got, let's just say we're looking for gamification enabled for user. So we've got this interface. Now the old school way, we'd go Control-Shift-F. And we look for this and we press find all, and we get this nice black and white thing down there. First time you use it, you don't even know you can double click on it, etc. So in 2015, things got better. We could go find all references, click on that guy, and we got this like tree structure. It looked a bit nicer than the old way. So it's a glorified Control-Shift-F. In 2017, things have improved to this. So now we get it like this. So we get, what do we get? We get a hierarchical menu nesting. We get lots of highlighting, which we didn't get before, and we get this hovering experience. So more readable grouping, syntax highlighting, and hover. Much nicer, I think. So in 2013, we got CodeLens, and that was another way to find all references. So you could click over here, and it's like you could see where it was being used, and I think that was good. So we've got all that. Now, I want to show you CodeLens gets much better. So, by the way, does anybody turn CodeLens off? Anyone?
Yeah.
One person, because performance reasons. I think you'll find they're unsubstantiated. because we've been through this a couple of times and it wasn't code lengths. So I'm not sure if you've measured it, but it's similar. It's when things are slow, what else is there? And some of this eye candy stuff you see, that must be expensive because it feels. But yeah, so we've done investigations and it hasn't been this. Just like I believe it's not usually ReSharper. Anyway, let's go through this. I want people to see live bugs and issues. How many people here are using application insights? Just a couple. All right. How many people here are using New Relic? New Relic? One, the American. Okay. How many people here are using Raygun? No one. Okay. Well, I have a new goal for the end of the session. All right. So Raygun is, so many years ago at SSW we developed this little app that we gave away. It was just a DLL logger that caught unhandled exceptions, and it was called Ladylog. And basically you put it in your Windows app or your web app and it would log it up to our service. These guys, well, Application Insights does that, New Relic does it, but Raygun, this little company from New Zealand, I know they're Kiwis, you'd be very proud of it, but awesome. We use it in almost all projects we do at SSW. It's really good and our clients love it. It gives you great insights. So this hyperlink and I go, oh, I know what that's going to do. That's going to take me off to App Insights. Well, it doesn't. So you click on one of these guys and it takes you into, so it keeps you in context of Visual Studio, okay? Of course you can go off to the portal if you prefer, but that's how it works. And so you can see those 4 requests, there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can have that on test or staging or production. So there's your timeline of events. So, and then you can click down in here and maybe click on one of these details, and then when you click on one of the details, you get details of that actual request itself. So there it is. All pretty cool. So let's go back. Even more important is when there's an error. So you get an error and you go, hello, this is my code I'm working on right now, but this method is giving grief in production. I think that is great. So we click on that and you go, what's this error? Click on that, you click on this, you go, whoa, what's that? And then you look at the details of the event, and there we've got a lot of insights. Now obviously you'd care about that if there's a few hundred in the last, the last short period of time. So code lens. So my first thought is, what have Microsoft done here? Have they made something that's extensible or not? So I emailed the Kiwis and I said, hey Mr. Raygun, and his name's JD, and I said, do you know about this feature? And they said, no, what is it? So I said, it's new in the beta. They go, really? And so, get a load of this. I reckon there's not much to do in New Zealand, but they've given us lots of areas in just the debugging experience of Visual Studio where it's the strongest already. You don't have to hit F10 all the time. You've got a nicer exception helper, better ways to navigate through your code, which I showed you, and you get more insight into production issues and errors and stuff. This was a very popular request. They wanted to use Chrome. So in VS Code, we got this. If we wanted to debug, you could just come in here into the extensions of VS Code and type in debugger, find this debugger for Chrome, and you're in business. So for example, you'd put a breakpoint, you'd run it, the browser would pop open, you click on a button, you're trying to investigate. Over here you would set use the watch variables, have a look at the call stack, switch to another line, maybe restart over here or restart over here and continue on the process. So that was kind of how that worked. That was pretty cool. Now, what about Visual Studio? What's the story with Visual Studio? Well, in 2017, it's now built in. So you do need a couple of things. Well, you don't need to do anything, but you need to be aware of what happens. How many people give that feature a gold star? Okay, all right, so almost everyone. Live unit tests. Let's talk about live unit tests. Unit testing has come a long way. Before, we had NUnit, and we had to manually run it. We've been doing this even since the XE days, where we would include this run unit test in the help menu, and we'd include our DLL, and people could run it on their actual XEs. And then we did that in the web as well. In 2005, we got MS Test. We got this ugly UI, and not a lot of people were writing tests. Even now, not a lot of people are writing tests. In 2010, we got Test Manager, which was a great way of unifying our test team and our dev team in large companies. We had a lot of success with that. And we also didn't have success when the testers would give us these automated tests that they'd recorded with the code UI tests. And then they'd got us to put that in our project. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but they were so fragile and useless. Anyway, in 2012, we got Test Explorer. So a much cleaner UI, less grid lines, and easier to see errors and stuff. So that was nicer. And we got exploratory testing. How many people do exploratory testing? No, nobody. I am going to quickly tell you something. Microsoft have invested a bit of effort in this. It is a tool. It used to be in the Test Manager. Now it's just a beautiful, sweet Chrome extension. And I did an interview with the main guy. His name's Ravi Shankar. And then I did another one with him just a couple months ago. And that is him there. And he's basically done. It is impossible to do a bad bug. It's impossible to have your testers do a bad bug report if they use this. You can go straight into TFS2. So great. Or visualstudio.com. So anyway, in 2013 we've got Code Lens. So when we're looking at a method, we can see if there's a failure. See the little red cross? We know. We got test charts. We got better visibility into unit tests. 2015 we got these smart unit tests. And many of the guys in our company tried to run these. They created them. Some of them tried to check them into their projects, and that caused a whole lot of kerfuffles. They are hard to get going, but for the guys that can work around their limitations, these are like the ultimate tests. Like you write your code, you run this, and it smashes your method with every bounds check out there, and it's pretty compelling. That's it, trying with nulls and out of range exceptions and stuff. So it's pretty cool. 2017, we get a brand new thing called live unit tests. So how do you run this? You come up to the test menu, you click test, live unit testing, start. And when you start, what appears? These things, blue bars, weird. So then you hover over those guys and you click on that and go, oh, I need some tests. So you come in, you right click on your method and you go, let's come down here, create unit tests, and then you create your unit tests. You need to select what unit testing framework you're going to use. Are you going to use MS Test or MS Test 2? They've just open sourced to GitHub. Or you're going to use XUnit or NUnit. Who goes NUnit? Few. Who goes XUnit? One. Who goes MS Test? Most of the room. All right. I'm going to tell you, MS Test is the only one you shouldn't use. Okay? I would probably, like most of my colleagues use NUnit, but I would probably say the way forward is probably XUnit, because XUnit is out of the box with .NET Core. It's probably the better way to go. MS Test hasn't been improved for a long time. Okay, so anyway, let's go forward. Now, we decide we add some, there's our code, everything's rosy. What do we need to do? So we write the unit test and everything's green. That's the experience. So this is our code. Let me just go back. We write our unit test, and now all our code, remember it was showing blue bars, now it's showing green ticks. So now we need to modify some code. This code doesn't work for Australia. Australia, you have to add GST, so we'll need to add GST. So what do? Well, we'll add a line of code into here. There's our line of code we've added. Quantity times price times 10%. Okay? And now we have a blue bar. Ah, bugger. So I'll go and fix the test. So when I look at the test is now failing. So the test is failing because it doesn't equal the code that was just written. So what do? Well, we'll add this tax rate stuff in. So we'll add 10% in. Everything's failing, left, right, and center. but we have 100. Let's pretend that we don't fix this. Let's pretend that we ignore this and pretend we have a test that's broken. Okay, so you can see that equals 200 where it should be 220, 10% tax. So we'll leave that. We'll go back to our code. What does our code look like? Our code looks like this. We see some crosses. We go, crosses? What's going on here? So you click on that. You go, okay. So then you click on that and it'll take you into the code, into the test. Now we're in the test. We need to go forward and fix up the test, which we will. We'll change that to 220. So our test is now working. We go back to the code and everything's rosy again. So that's kind of the experience. If anybody ever used or heard of nCrunch? 1 sol. Okay, 2 sols. Okay, anyway, it's very similar to that. It's amazing how Microsoft come up with some of those same ideas years later. But anyway, they do. All right. So, and new code is covered. Great, beautiful. That's live unit test. Now Visual Studio, you can see the tests in your code. Red, green refactor is a good way of working. Now it's easy to work like that. There's less excuses for writing unit tests. I'm sure developers will come up with some new excuses that it takes too much time or there's no visibility or something. Anyway, so we've got this rule about using live unit tests in our rules to better unit tests, so you can have a look at that as well. All right, how many people, this wasn't a request by the way, but how many people give that a gold star? Think that's a good feature they want? So 3/4. The other guys are never going to write unit tests. Yeah, I know. All right, fair enough. So this is what they've got to do. What they should do to impress some of you is say, hey, this isn't covered by tests. How about I write the test for you? Would that be good? No, that would be bad. That sounds like PEX. But this is what I consider. It's like this. See, this is the Tesla. This is what live unit test is like. As you're coding away, before you see a problem, it starts warning you there's about to be a crash. Isn't that amazing? The Tesla did that. I can tell you, it's lightning fast. Do you want to see that again? Here we go. Oh, so you're driving along. It can see a crash is happening up ahead because it looks at cars in front of you. It can see all the cars. It's amazing. Yeah. He's looking at the other detail. All right. So anyway, it's a bit of a stretch, but live unit test is very much like that feature. Okay. All right. Let's go into code styling. Now, this is one I particularly liked. Some of the guys in the office didn't like this as much. But how do you enforce rules? Now, we have invested a fair bit of effort. So I try to get style cop and code analysis on all our projects. And every check-in, I'm always trying to ask the guys to ratchet it up so it gets tighter. We have built our own little tool called Code Auditor as well. So as an example, this is what adults argue about. So anyway, I've seen many arguments not dissimilar to that. So in 2015, we had this spaces or tabs. In 2017, we can create a .editor config file. I think this is cool. You can write some rules in there, commit it into the solution, and it doesn't matter what the developers set, it's ignored, and it follows this. So you go in here, you go text file, .editor.config, press add, there we go, and you come in here and you go instant style will be tabs, and everyone's going to be using tabs or spaces. And in fact, you can add a whole lot of settings here. If you look, there's heaps of these, and if this is an open standard, this works in all tab text editors. It's editorconfig.org, an open standard. So there's lots, okay? So you've got all that. Who thinks that's a cool feature? Gives that a gold star? 2/3 of the room. All right. So the last bits. Let's just do the last stretch as quickly as we can. C# language extensions. I always find this interesting. You see C#, like all the conversations I have with Angular and React and VB, look at they have just overtaken VB at this point. Now obviously don't forget you got meant to change that to programming. And here, look, they're so far away from C#, like it's such a monster. Anyway, Last year, we have a video up on SSW TV with all the C#6 features. In C#7, there's heaps of them. I'm just going to choose a couple. Tuples. Tuples? Which one is it? Tuples? Anyway, so you come here. Here's the problem in 2015. A new tuple, we have to define, it's a string, decimal, boolean. There's the different types. Like, why do we have to define it when it's pretty easy to infer what it is? Anyway, so the other problem is down here. When we start using them, we have to go .item1, .item3. Like, that's ugly, isn't it? So they've improved things. So, you know, you have to declare the type for each one, and the compiler should be able to work it out, like var, and the items have no context, what's item 1 and what's item 2. So, 2017, now we don't actually have to define it. We can just say A is a string, that's a number, that's a boolean, but the problem is down here, we still get this .item1, .item3, etc. So, semi-solved. That said, they also have this. So you can actually go up and name colon, order total, is VIP, and now when you're using it, you can go .name, .is VIP, .order total. So in summary, that's a named item declaration, and now the items have meaning. Cool. So we also have this. I don't know, this is probably incremental, but see how we've got int I. It's outside our if block. It's got no meaning outside that, but we have to define it outside. So people don't like doing that bit there. So this is a request. So now what we can do, so we can come in here and we can go out var I just within here. It's got no meaning outside, so it's not used outside, it's just in this scope here. And it's also, you can use it in the else and stuff. All right, so that if only exists within this if block. If else, etc. Now, one of the things you'll notice, which I think is really cool, if you do it outside, the little light box will pop open and say, hey, do you want to do it the cool way? So that's nice. And I think a lot more of this will come. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention, you can suppress it if you don't want to. Okay. So let's look at another feature. We have a class bird and a class magpie inheriting from bird, and another one called budgie, and they have is swooping session. Now here's the thing. Now here's our base class. There's a derived class, and there's another derived class with different properties. So how would you use that? Well, we have to do all this checking. If the bird is not null, then do this. If the bird is a magpie, then we can do this. And so we're doing a lot of checking, a lot of if statements here. We're casting the bird to a magpie here, etc., so that we can use this. Now, then that goes on and on and on, and obviously if it gets complicated, you've got a lot of that. So there's a lot of casting. In 2017, we can now use the switch statement. So if you look closely, it's a bit neater. If the magpie, when using this swooping session, okay, so now we can do the type check, create a local variable, and all used within this case statement. So I think that's substantially neater. I don't know whether you guys will care for it. How many people think this is useful? Okay, all right, cool. So more than 2/3, great. So there's lots of that. I haven't shown you much. There's also some quick refactoring tools, but if you remember, we got lots of C#6 enhancements, and it wasn't until update 2 of 2015 where all those features started coming through and saying, hey, use this, use that, all the helping stuff. So I think all those refactoring tools will get better and better with each update. So I just want to call this out. This is just news because I've been encouraging Microsoft to give us a wiki for a while. This has nothing to do with Visual Studio itself, but we have been lacking a decent wiki. If you use Jira tools, they have Confluence. It's a nice wiki. We did have a wiki in SharePoint, but they kind of decommissioned. Well, they kind of backed that out. I personally believe that this is the job of the Office team to give us a wiki. It's or the team, or of the SharePoint team, one of them. It's a problem, but what we now have, Microsoft have just bought Wiki from Agile Extensions. When I say Microsoft, I should be clear, the div team, the visualstudio.com team bought it. It was an extension, so they bought it and they put it under their own. Here we go. You can see, you can go and install this, and here is our this is our Sugar Learning one. So you come in here and now you've got this wiki, and you can come through and make all your pages with Markdown. So I think that's a good approach. I think it's the wrong team personally, but at least we have it. And that's owned by Microsoft, so that's good. So what do they miss? Do they give us everything? Let's just go back. Support for web style transformations. That was there. It was a high priority one. They didn't give it to us. Add non-nullable reference types. They didn't give it to us. Bring Windows 10 universal apps. Didn't give it to us. Enable XAML debugging. We didn't get that one either. So as you can see, we got lots of things. We didn't get everything we want. So in summary, we did a trip down memory lane. We looked at all the versions since 2001. I went through the biggest gripes we have. I went through my favorite thing, which is .NET Core. We went through VS Code, and hopefully you guys know to use VS Code on your Angular, React, JavaScript projects. You saw that Visual Studio 2017, already known throughout everywhere as the best IDE around by a mile. It just got substantially better. Hopefully it had the investments you like. I've put up a few resources here with the slides, so you can grab the slides and look at those. But this first one, visualstudio.com, they keep giving updates, and they keep, I think it's important to be reading. The Power BI team also do something even better, I think. They're amazing. And I've got Rules to Better DevOps and Rules to Better Application Insights. Fire Bootcamp, I'm going to recommend you guys consider it. It's 6 weeks online. We also have a 9 weeks full-time on-premise. That's pretty brutal, and it requires you to it's pretty hard. This is part-time, and it's online. It's all on Angular 2. That's all we cover on this Fire Bootcamp. Last 3 things. I'd love you to tweet your favourite feature as you discover them, or from tonight. I have some posters here which you can grab, which are the Scrum and 8 steps. And we've now added all this new DevOps stuff to it. And fill in your evals, have some pizza. Thank you very much.